Welcome to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and today we're going to be looking at a Cheltenham Festival preview with horse racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Alster. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hello, Izzy. I'm fine. It's great to be here with you. I mean, we've got so much to look forward to with 4 amazing days coming up very soon.
I know it's getting really exciting now. I think I know online you get the classic kind of people that saying that Cheltenham fever kind of loses its sparkle, but I personally don't think it does, Paul. I'm so excited for all of this, and I can't wait to start going through the cards really. But we're going to do day one on this podcast, and we're going to go through kind of the start, probably the main races, and then we'll see if we've got any other fancies as well. So I think we have to start with the Raw, and that's the Supreme. So current favourite in that is Kopek de Board. I think obviously you've still got horses in here like Romeo Coolio, and earlier in the season Salvatore Mundi was quite well fancied before he put in a few shocking jumping performances. Do you have a particular fancy in the Supreme, or anything outside of Kopek de Boards maybe?
Well, I mean, one of the big challenges we're facing as regards selections and advice at this point is, first of all, we don't know what's going to be running. Obviously, Kopek de Board is the very warm favourite, and he's looked very good in his 2 wins at Leopardstown, including the Grade 1 last time out. But we don't know how many of Willie Mullins's horses are actually going to go. You know, Izzy, at the moment, Willie's got 12 runners entered. Or the Supreme Novice Hurdle. Gordon Elliott's just got the 4, including Romeo Coolio, who you mentioned, another one to have won a Grade 1 at the Leopardstown Festival. But the big standout feature to me of the market as it stands now is that last time I looked, there wasn't a British-based runner priced at less than 20 to 1. And the only one is the new Lion, and he's probably not even going to run in it. I think he's going to go for the other novice hurdle over a little bit further. So it basically sets the tone for what could be, you know, a real Willie Mullins and Island sort of a tsunami of winners on the first and possibly the second day of the festival as well.
I think that hopefully it's not going to necessarily set the tone for the Pressbury Cup, but who knows? I mean, like you say, it does look like Willie Mullins is a shoo-in to get off the board in the first, but I do think I find it personally quite hard to see Kopek de Boards not winning this. I think, you know, even if you were to look at the second favourite currently, Romeo Coolio, he's been quite inconsistent this season. You know, I think when you've got a horse like Kopek de Boards putting up these emphatic performances that are so exciting, it's hard not to be drawn to him and think that he's going to win. I know we'll probably get to this in one of our later podcasts, but I wonder if we'll get what they call the Kopek bookends on the whole meeting, because you've got Kopek de Boards in the Supreme in the first race, and then you've also got Kopek de Me running in the last race. So we could get the Kopek bookend.
Well, Kopek de Board, of course, he's been really impressive in his 2 wins at Leopardstown, but he's never been to Cheltenham. He's going to face a completely different atmosphere and better quality opposition than he's met so far. I mean, I thought Work Ahead was actually very impressive, Henry de Bromhead's runner, when he won at Leopardstown, but it was at a much lower level. He beat William Money, who subsequently come out and won again very well. But I suppose, all things being equal, he's going to start a very warm favourite, and he's the one the bookies are going to fear. They won't want him to go in because there'll be lots of doubles, trebles and 4-timers, starting off with Kopek de Board.
A day of anxiety for the bookies, I think, if Kopek de Board goes in. So if we move on and take a little look at the next race, which at the start of the season, Paul, I've got to be honest with you, I thought this race was going to be one of the most exciting, and it's broken apart a little bit, and that is the Arkle. So if you'd have been speaking to most people earlier on in the season, they'd have said it was Ballyburn's Arkle. And then we had the question about whether Constitution Hill was going to come back. So Sergino was potentially going to take his place in the champion hurdle. Then both Sergino and Constitution Hill roared back and had very impressive wins at Kempton in December, including Sergino sort of handing Ballyburn's you know what to him up that Kempton run in, and then all of a sudden it was Sergino was suddenly the hot favourite for the Arkle. That's all fallen apart a bit. It looks like Ballyburn might go for a different race. Sergino's obviously unfortunately out for the season, but luckily seems to be on the mend, which is good for racing fans. But it now turns to Margeborough, who was actually one of Willie Mullins' sort of horses to follow on his stable tour and press tour for the Cheltenham Festival last year. So not this year's one, but the year previous. And it was the horse that he was most looking forward to seeing. And then obviously Margeborough went and won at last year's Cheltenham Festival as well, just to back that up and prove that Willie really can pick him out. So he now finds himself favourite. His jumping probably leaves a little something to be desired on his performance at the DRF and a performance before that. You mentioned British hopes earlier. There could be a British hope in this because you could see Le de Sud for the Skelton team. And I've got to be honest with you, considering Margeborough's quite well fancied at this point, Le de Sud's done absolutely nothing wrong.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, Margeborough is clearly a very good horse. You know, he's already won at the festival. He's Grade 1 horse, absolutely. The point you make about his jumping is important because he got away with a few novice errors at Leopardstown, might not get away with them quite so easily at Cheltenham. And Le de Sud for me has been really, really impressive. And, you know, they're betting about 4 to 6, 8 to 13 for Margeborough. 5 to 1 for many people, they'd see that as an each way bet to nothing to get your money back if he finishes in the first three, second or third. But I think he's got a proper chance of serving it up to Margeborough, and I think he'd run very, very well indeed. I think those are the two standout horses. Django Bai was only just beaten by handstands over at Sandown in a Grade 1 over 2.5 miles, so he'll certainly stay up the hill. And the other point that's really worth to start bearing in mind is what the ground is going to be, Izzy, at Cheltenham, because I've taken a look at the BBC forecast. Now, I know we can't believe every word that is on the BBC, but according to their weather forecast, there's only 2 days between now and the start of the festival when they're expecting any sort of rain, you know, any significant rain, just light showers. They're expecting it to be cloudy, a few dry days. So I'd be surprised if the festival, according to the weather forecast, was to start on anything worse than good to soft. And so that's going to have a little bit of a different spin on things, because quite a lot of horses we've been seeing through the winter winning good races have been winning on soft and heavy ground. So we'll have to bear that in mind, and it could have a big say in the way things will go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can't underestimate, you know, what the ground will be. I imagine that there'll be regular updates on potential watering from the Cheltenham grounds team as well, and that's something you certainly want to keep an eye out ahead of the festival, because that's only got to go one drop the wrong way with an unexpected shower and that could be all changed. So if we move on to the next race, Paul, and just take a little look at probably, I would say, one of the races that gets the most stick, which is the Mares' Hurdle. I know many people would rather that this race had some sort of cap in terms of entry that forces the better horses, the mares that we all love, to go for the champion hurdle. And there's 2 horses in still currently entered in this race this year that I personally would really still like to see in the champion hurdle, but they do still hold a place in the market here. They do still hold an entry, and that is Brighter Days Ahead and Lossiemouth. Now, the last time we saw Lossiemouth, she had that quite crushing fall actually at the DRF against State Man, and obviously the last time we saw Brighter Days Ahead, she was putting in a absolutely incredible performance against State Man, and here they both are in the Mares' Hurdle. Where do you think they'll run?
I think they'll both go for the champion hurdle.
Do you?
I really do. I do. I mean, you know, you've got a terrific race. They're both terrific. Brighter Days Ahead and Lossiemouth. Nobody knows how long horses are going to stay sound, how long they're going to be at the top of their game. And this is their one chance to have a crack at the biggest race of all. And okay, Constitution Hill is going to be mighty, mighty difficult to beat. But as we know, you should never be afraid of just one horse. You know, he could have an off day. He could unseat his rider at the first. Um, I just think that they should both take their chance and take on Constitution Hill and make a proper race of it. And you mentioned people having views about the Mares' Hurdle. I would scrap it. I really just I don't see why you should have a separate race for mares. I like to see the best mares taking on the best geldings, and I'm afraid it dilutes things. So um, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Brighter Days Ahead and Lossiemouth both take their chance in the champion. And because of that, I think the horse, to keep an eye on. And again, we're a little way off the festival, so we don't know who's going to run and what the ground's going to be. But the ex-French horse July Flower, I think, is fascinating for Henry de
Yes.
Bromhead, and I think she could be the one to maybe bear in mind for that race.
I mean, Golden Ace still holds a entry into places, doesn't she? Because she's obviously got her entry also in the Champion Hurdle, and obviously she was successful at the festival last year. Interestingly, with Golden Ace, though, the team have come out and said she's had a few niggly issues, so I think they're going to wait right until the last minute before they make their decision on which race she'll run in. But
Yeah.
I like you, really hope that both Lossie and Brighter Days Ahead go in that Champion Hurdle. I do think that this could then fall in the lap a little bit of Jade de Grugy.
hmm Yeah, I mean, Jade de Grugy, she's one of the Kenny Alexander horses. He's also potentially got Cargess, who is another
Yes.
very, very nice mare. But Jade de Grugy, she's done nothing wrong. She's a talented mare. I do feel that July Flower is unexposed against her. She had her first run for Henry de Bromhead at the Leopardstown Christmas meeting, and she won a Grade 3 in really good style. And she's got cracking form over in France. So I would be, pretty interested in July Flower, but we'll just have to see what the makeup of the race is. If Lossiemouth or Brighter Days Ahead turns up, then it will have a completely different complexion on it.
In the next race, then, Paul, we've kind of mentioned a few of these now, just by proxy the fact that they have entries in both races. We do have the race that has top billing on the day, and that is the Champion Hurdle. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I think that whilst we could get such a historical moment for racing, in the sense that even my friends who aren't interested in racing have heard of Constitution Hill. He's taken the racing world by storm. And in terms of what happened last year, him getting colic, him coming back, even though he's well fancied for this, as a racing fan, I really want him to win by a country mile, basically, and set the racing world on fire and be on the front page of all of the newspapers and make it onto the news. And I do think he will, but I do think there's that amazing kind of comeback story, obviously, where he didn't get to take his place last year. He has overcome this illness. But this race, it doesn't feel like the race of old. The days where we had your Istabrax, your Hurricane Fly. It just doesn't have that same feel to it. And like you say, Paul, I think in a way we've almost got that horses are running scared of Constitution Hill, and I think that does weaken the race to some degree, because you've kind of got one horse up here and everybody else sort of just nipping in behind. But one question I have for you is, how do you think State Man will run? Because everybody talks about him as if he's past it, as if he's had his day. But he's only an 8-year-old. He's the same age as Constitution Hill. Okay, so he had a couple of bad runs, or a couple of lacklustre runs. But if you look at that last run against Lossiemouth at the Dublin Racing Festival, they were serving it up to each other. He didn't look as if he was struggling. It's not like she was miles in front when she fell and then left the race to him. He was serving it up to her just as much as she was to him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much doubt that State Man is maybe not quite the horse he was. A year ago, he was a terrific horse, and he's been beaten by Brighter Days Ahead already a few times, and he ended up beating a horse ranked much much lower than him, Daddy Longlegs, after Lossiemouth departed. So we'll never know. I think he'll run his race. I think it'd be great to have him there because he's a champion, and you know, he won the race last year. He's going to try and defend his crown, but I'll be shocked if he's good enough to beat Constitution Hill. I think while you're quite right, horses are running scared, or at least the trainers are. The horses are probably going. I know Gordon Elliott really does believe that Brighter Days Ahead is special. I think he believes she's the best mare he's ever trained. So remember, she's getting £7 as well. So I think she could give him a race. I don't think she'll beat him. You know, she might get within 5 lengths of him or something. And Lossiemouth could as well, because on her day, of course, she's ranked £5 higher than Brighter Days Ahead as well. She could really serve it up. But to be honest, I think it would be brilliant for racing to see a kind of a Frankel type aura around Constitution Hill, to be unbeaten and to keep winning and winning in breathtaking fashion. And I don't see him getting beaten bar a fall. And let's hope that doesn't happen. I think he'll win. And I think a lot of people will be wanting to bet the odds on, you know, even at 4 to 6, let's say, if he goes off at 4 to 6. For people that aren't familiar with racing parlance, that, you know, it means you're going to make 66% profit on your money. And a lot of people would say, well, you put your money in the bank and you're looking to get 2.5% this year and cover inflation. You can have 66% if you think Constitution Hill is going to go down and come back in front. So
I like that. Yeah. That's like a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Paul, I think you just girl mathed Constitution Hill.
I think a lot of people see odds on. I'm not an odds on punter. All my followers and people that follow my out in front service know that I'm always looking for each way prices and big odds. But at the end of the day, when you look at a horse who's unbeatable thus far, and you potentially could get 66% profit for your money in about 4 minutes,
that's good going.
It's worth thinking about. Of course, he might fall. He might have an off day. He might get out of bed the wrong side and decide he doesn't fancy the job. But that's not the horse that we know. And if he turns up on the day, Nicky always has them spot on. Nico de Boinville gets on with him superb, knows the horse back to front. I think it's as close to buying money as you're likely to get at this Cheltenham Festival.
And I think at the end of the day, like you say, Paul, we can all pick a big outsider in that race. But at the end of the day, we're looking for winners. And if we think he's going to win, then that's a pretty good way of, pretty good logic behind why you might put your money down.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is as well, we don't know how many are going to turn up against him. It could be a very small field if the two mares decide to take each other on in the mares' hurdle.
Yeah.
You know, we could end up with 6 or 7 runners or something like that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Outside of those big races then, Paul, do you have any other fancies for day one?
Well, on the assumption that the ground wouldn't be too bad, there are a number of horses that I think are worth keeping an eye on in the handicap races. Just very quickly, a few just for the shortlist. Let's say in the Ultima Handicap Chase, that's the 3 mile 1 furlong race. Horses like a Broadway Boy of Nigel Twiston Davis's loves the course. I think he could bounce back and run well. Willie's got a few in it. Iris Omri is interesting if it were to get in. I'm not sure it's high enough in the weights. There's a French runner called Gold Tweet, trained by Gabriel Linders in France, and that horse is pretty talented. So there's others.
Didn't he win a Cleve Hurdle?
Gold Tweed has won. He's won a decent prize, certainly. I'm trying to remember exactly which one it was.
I think he beat Paisley Park on. Was it trial? No, the October meeting or trials day. He won a Cleve Hurdle and beat Paisley Park and a few of the other stayers. I think he's also got an entry in the stayers, so I'd be interested to see where he goes.
Yeah, you're quite right. Actually, he did a couple of years ago. He did, but most recently he's been, taking on very good horses in France. But of course, he went to Haydock and he went for the Betfair Chase. And he finished 4th there in the Betfair Chase, which of course is a Grade 1. Here he is in a handicap. That's what sort of caught my eye from the more recent form. And I suspect as well, he's a horse that, unlike a lot of French horses, is likely to appreciate a better ground. So we'll have to wait and see if he takes his chance. And of the other races, well, the Fred Winter is a race that's very close to my heart because my followers at Sportsbet, it was a red letter day at the 21 Cheltenham Festival when I tipped Jeff Kidder, who won the race at 80 to 1. I'm not sure there's anything quite that price, but there's a number of interesting runners there. And Tom Dascombe's got one called Hot Fuss. There's a horse called Naturally Nimble of Joseph O'Brien, a horse that I think could be worth a second glance. But again, we'll have to see which horses get in and make the decisions. But I think that's an interesting race as well. Yeah, the Fred Winter.
And where can our viewers go to get your selections for day one then, Paul?
Well, I always offer my tips free on Sportsbet TV on the YouTube channel, so I'll be offering one or two there. But my subscription services are Out in Front, and they can check that out. Google Out in Front with Paul Alster, and then they can sign up for the monthly service, or they can just take it day by day. Just pick the days they want to hear my selections, and then just sign up for the one day, whichever they like. And we've got a terrific record, especially at the big meetings.
If I could push you for one selection, your top selection on day one, who are you going for?
Well, other than Constitution Hill, which will be a cop-out to go for that one,
Muggy.
I think Lotus Sud is going to give Marshborough a proper race in the Arkle.
Nice. Wow, I like that. Okay, that's it for our day one preview. Join us again for day two.